we are discussing a poem, Home They Brought Her Warrior Dead by Alfred Tennyson. Before I begin my discussion, I would like you to welcome all and sincerely plead you, if you are new to my channel, please subscribe my channel. You will accompany me till the end of this video. And before I begin, let me recite the poem first. The title of the poem is Home They Brought Her Warrior Dead. The poet is Alfred Tennyson. Home they brought her warrior dead, she nor soon nor uttered cry. All her maidens watching said, she must weep or she will die. Then they praised him, soft and low, called him worthy to be loved. Truest friend and noblest foe, yet she neither spoke nor moved, stole a maiden from her place, lightly to the warrior stepped, took the face cloth from the face, yet she neither moved nor wept, rose a nurse of 90 years, set his child upon her knee. Like summer tempest came her tears, sweet my child, I live for thee. So this is a poem. Home They Brought Her Warrior Dead is a poem all to do about the feelings that a widow is to undergo when her husband, she learns, has been killed in a battle. When they have brought the corpse home, her feelings was nothing too emotional, and she never fainted out of sadness or never cried her heart out. She stayed rather composed and quiet. Her maidens urged her to cry, as they said that if she didn't at all, pent up emotions inside her that she was trying to struggle with would burst out of her, thus resulting in her death. When an old nurse rose, who was as old as 90 years, rose to her feet and placed the warrior's baby on the wife's knees, her fears came quickly, and only they did. She started crying, thus showing us that it was not the warrior's life that she was grieving for, but her baby, who was now going to enter this world without a father. This poem glosses over emotions such as sadness and grief, expectation of what the widow should have to do and what the widow never did. And that's the poem, and let's talk about the poem. And this composition is by Alfred Tennyson. It's about the story of a widow who has just received the body of her husband, who seems to have been a soldier and was wounded in a war. The widow's maidens wept profusely, but later got worried. Widow is shell-shocked and cannot emote any sorrow. They try and talk about the soldier's conquest and what a noble warrior he was, to try and get the lady to weep. But all the efforts are in vain. The lady finally weeps after it is revealed that she isn't just a widow, but also a mother. Tennyson beautifully portrays the strong and overbearing nature of motherhood that forgets all the sorrows in the world when their child is in most need of their love and affection. In a nutshell, the poem is a reflection of the sorrowful life of a widow who has to worry about her child after the sole breadwinner of the family, that's her husband, is no more. That's the summary of the poem. When the woman saw her dead warrior, she neither soon nor uttered a cry. The maidens were worried and shocked at the total lack of reaction of the lady on seeing her dead husband. She neither soon nor cried at the loss of the dead warrior. The terrible shock seemed to have numbed her. The maidens were worried that if she did not express her grief explicitly, she would die. The maidens tried different things to bring tears to their friends' eyes. They praised her husband a lot and spoke about her greatness. They praised her husband a lot and spoke about his greatness as a friend and as a warrior. They called him a man worthy to be loved and respected. One maiden went near the dead body and took the face cloth shroud from his body so that the maiden could see her husband's dead face. None of these efforts brought a change to the maiden's expression, and she sat like a rock without showing any emotion. A 90-year-old nurse succeeded in making the woman cry. The maiden was totally unmoved despite all efforts from her friends. But she broke into tears the moment she looked at her child. Only on seeing her child, she would have realized that life for her would be difficult, as she would have to bring up a fatherless child all on her own. The poet is trying to convey that at the end there are no winners in a war. The poet writes on the subject to make the readers realize the impact of war on victims' lives. मृत योद्धालाई घरमा ल्याए तिनीहरूले अल्फ्रेड लर्ड टेनिसनको एक चर्चित शोकगीत हो। यो कवितामा मृत योद्धाको लास उनीहरूले घर आफ्नो श्रीमती समक्ष ल्याइ पुर्याउँदा पत्नीको कुनै प्रतिक्रिया हुँदैन। उनी कुनै प्रतिक्रिया देखाउनको लागि तयारी छैनन्। उनी यति विक्षिप्त छन् कि उनी एउटा चट्टान सरह आफूलाई चाहिँ प्रस्तुत गरिरहेकी छिन्। अनि जति विक्षिप्त भए पनि उनी आफ्नो प्रतिक्रिया देखाउनको लागि तयार छैनन्। उनका साथीहरू जुन कुमारीहरू छन् उनीहरूको निष्कर्ष छ, यदि उनी रोइनन् भने, यदि उनी बिलौना गरिनन् भने उनले त्यो सब उनको पीडालाई बिर्को लगाएर राखेको, उनको दुःख र पीडालाई बिर्को लगाएर राखेको दुःखले उनलाई अवश्य नै मार्नेछ। उनलाई रुवाउने पहिलो प्रयास स्वरूप उनका साथी कुमारीहरूले उनको मृत पतिको गुणगान गाउँछन्। उसलाई असल मित्र र महान अथवा सज्जन दुश्मनको रूपमा प्रस्तुत गर्छन्। तथापि उनी आफ्नो मानसिक पीडाको अवस्था रत्तिभर बदल्दिन्नन्। तत्पश्चात एउटी कुमारी साथीले मृत शरीर छेउ जान्छन् र उनको आफ्नो साथीको मृत योद्धाको मुहार छोपिएको कात्रो हटाउँछन्, जसले गर्दा उनको पत्नीको पीडा बिलौनाको स्वर मार्फत पोखियोस्। परन्तु यो पनि हुँदैन। उनी अटल देखिन्छन्। स्वर्गीय योद्धासँग उनले जन्माएको एक सानो बालकलाई अन्तमा जब 90 वर्षीय सेविकाले उनको घुँडामा राखिदिन्छन्, योद्धाकी पत्नीको आँखाबाट ग्रीष्म ऋतुको आँधी बिहेरी जस्तै आँसुको तुफान अकस्मात र डरलाग्दो रूपमा पोखिन्छ। योद्धाकी पत्नी भन्छन्, मेरो प्यारो बाबु, म तिम्रो लागि नै बाँच्छु। यसरी यस कवितामा कविले एउटा युद्धमा लडेको, युद्धमा शहादत प्राप्त गरेको, युद्धमा शहीद बनेको, एउटा युद्धमा जीवन उत्सर्ग गरेको एउटा सिपाहीको श्रीमतीको अवस्था र श्रीमतीको प्रतिक्रिया कस्तो हुन्छ। पछि उनका साथीहरूले उनको र भविष्यप्रति बहुत चिन्ता राखेर उनका साथीहरूले उनलाई चाहिँ सकेसम्म उनको मनमा भएको यो क्लेश, मनमा भएको पीडा, मनमा भएको दुःख त्यहाँ भित्र चाहिँ रोकिराख्नुभन्दा बरु बाहिर पोख्नु जाथे। एकछिन आँसुको रूपमा, एकछिन आँधी बेरी, आँसुको आँधी बेरीको रूपमा समरको अथवा ग्रीष्म ऋतुको आँधी बेरीको जसरी पोखिए पनि उनको चाहिँ त्यो एउटा रोइ कराई जसरी चाहिँ उनको बिलौना बाहिर निस्कन्छ, तब उनी केही क्षणपछि उनी शान्त हुनेछन् र उनको अवस्था पनि सुध्रिनेछ। यो भनेर उनका साथीहरूले उनी विक्षिप्त भएको बेलामा पनि उनलाई रुवाउन सुनेर, उनको बिलौना सुनेर तमासा हेर्नलाई होइन, उनको साथीको चाहिँ हितको लागि, उनको साथीको भविष्यको लागि, उनको साथीको स्वस्थताको लागि, उनको साथीको दीर्घायुको लागि उनीहरूले त्यो गरेका छन्। आखिरीमा बुढोपाको भनेको बुढोपाको नै हो। अरू कसैले गर्न नसकेको कुरा एउटी बुढी सेविकाले जब उनीहरू त्यो सिपाहीसँग उनले पाएको बच्चा उनको घुँडामा ल्याएर जब राखिदिन्छन् तब त्यो चट्टान सरह आफ्नो भावना कुनै पनि व्यक्त नगरेकी प्रतिक्रिया कुनै पनि आफ्नो श्रीमानको मृत्युप्रति कुनै पनि प्रतिक्रिया व्यक्त नगरेकी योद्धाकी पत्नीले ग्रीष्म ऋतुको तुफान सरह अकस्मात र डरलाग्दो गरी आँसुको भेल उनका आँखाबाट निकाल्छिन् र भन्छन् उनी त्यो योद्धाको पत्नी मात्र होइनन्, उनी त्यो योद्धासँग उनले पाएको बच्चाकी आमा पनि हुन्। त्यसकारण उनी बिलौना गरेर आफ्नो पतिसँग सती जानी छैनन्। उनी त त्यो आफ्नो उनीसँग पाएको उनको नासो बचाउने छन्। त्यो नासोको आमा पनि भएर उनको पत्नी मात्र नभइकन उसको नासोको आमा भएर बाँच्ने छिन्। यसरी कविले एउटा विक्षिप्त एउटा महिलाको शोकाकुल अवस्थाको चित्रण यो कवितामा गरेका छन्। That's the end of discussion of that poem in Nepali. Let's have a critical appreciation. This poem by Alfred Tennyson is a medium for the reader to become a spectator to the sorrowful life of a warrior's wife. The life that follows after the death of a warrior is depicted clearly in this poem. The reader is made to perceive the sorrows of the maidens and especially the wife whose emotions have been broken up with the idea of her raising their only child all by herself. The concern of a mother is narrated clearly in these actions. The woman who has shown unmoved despite the death of the warrior husband weeps but not of sorrow and that of fear, instead the fear of raising her child all alone. Tennyson aims to portray the wife caring more about the livelihood of her child than the death of her husband. The poet is trying to convey that at the end there are no winners in a war. The poet writes on the subject to make the readers realize the impact of war on victims' lives. Home They Brought Her Warrior Dead is a lyrical poem by English poet Alfred Tennyson. This poem is made up of 4 stanzas, each consisting of 4 lines each. The whole poem is written in third person with the narrator describing a particular incident. The incident in question is a recently widowed woman's reaction to her husband's death in battle. In the first stanza, the narrator describes how the husband's corpse was brought to his home after he had passed away while fighting in the warfield. In the second stanza, the narrator describes how the maidens who had come to visit the widow tried in various ways to make her aware of the loss she had been through so as to evoke an emotional reaction from her. In the third stanza, the narrator describes how one particular maiden made a concentrated effort from her own side to make the widow cry and thus express her grief. In the fourth stanza, the apparent mystery of the widow's motionlessness and silence is solved. With this stanza, the speaker finally reveals to the readers the reason for the widow's silence. She has not been unfeeling or careless of her husband's death. The narrator describes how an old nurse of 90 years placed the widow's child on her knee, and then, to everyone's relief, the widow's tears came down with the force of a storm like the ones that occur in summer months. And finally, this poem is written by Alfred Tennyson, who concentrated more on war and war heroes. In this poem, the poet has depicted the feelings of a warrior's wife who was eagerly awaiting the arrival of her husband who went to the battlefield. Instead of the arrival of the warrior, his dead body was brought home. The wife of the warrior was frozen with deep shock. She neither cried nor lost her consciousness. All her maidens were worried. They said within themselves, she must cry, otherwise she would die. The soldier's wife was totally unmoved despite all efforts from her friends. but she broke into tears the moment she looked at her child. She realized that life of her would be difficult, as she would have to bring up a fatherless child all on her own. That's the end of today's discussion. If you have any queries regarding the presentation of this home they brought her warrior dead, you can put your ideas in my comment box. I'm sure you got the points. Goodbye. Have a nice time.